Welcome to Player Driven. Here's what you're about to listen to on today's episode. What happens when the Command and Conquer mod becomes something way bigger? This week on Player Driven, I sat down with Eric Chow, founder of Honor Games, and his story is wild. He went from fan mods to running his own game studio, and he's blending game dev with something you don't hear enough about: mental health advocacy. You'll hear how to actually turn modding into a career, why narrative design still matters, and how gaming can be a real force for good. This episode is about purpose, passion, and building games with meaning. Tap that follow button for more episodes like this, and we're just getting started. This is Player Driven. Let's go. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Player Driven. Greg here. Today, we are joined by Eric Chow. He is the founder of Honor Games, and I'm really excited to talk about it because he has created a mod for one of my favorite games of all time, and we'll be talking about that a little bit. He is now the founder of Honor Games, where they're building out other games as well that they're working on. I'm excited to learn more about that. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to be here. This is great.
I found you on LinkedIn. We were both going to PAX East, and we
Yeah.
connected. And I saw that you
Yeah.
created a mod for Command and Conquer Tiberian Secret, and it really took off. And you created a studio out of it. So I'm excited to talk about that. And you also do a lot with mental health, which I think is very important, top of mind for pretty much everyone that's out there these days in any industry. We see it's brutal in gaming. It's brutal in all places right now with what's going on. So how do you keep your mental health? And it's a ton of work to be working in mental health. So we thank you for that, first of all, and all you've gone through. But want to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah. So it's quite a long journey, but basically in terms of my modding experience, we started modding Command and Conquer Tiberium Wars back in summer of 2011. And we were doing a couple of different we didn't realize just how much work it was. We basically introduced one full new faction into the game called the Artificial Systematic Intelligence. It's one of the first robotic factions that was fully introduced in the modding space, and that actually took up a long time. And our original vision was to add three new factions to the game. We didn't realize just how much work that would be. But also, aside from having development for assets and modding, we actually I made it a priority of mine to really include some good story elements as well. And that was one thing that I think I really take pride on is uh, our narrative elements, and that's something that I really spent a lot of time back almost about a decade ago. Um, and so that's kind of where my journey started. And we had about three or four other core people that were working on the project, and unfortunately, none of them are here with Honor Games anymore. But we've been in contact, and things are nice. They just had other things to do with their lives. But so that's kind of where the journey started for modding on ModDB, uh, the platform put on by Scott Reismanis. I believe you have communicated with him in the past. Some of your listeners may be aware of the work that he's doing with mod.io and making sure that user generated content is available to as many people as possible. For some mysterious reason, which I cannot figure out, but I guess it's a good thing, is we still get about 200 visits to Tiberium Secrets a day. A day. I don't quite understand this, but it's great. It must mean that we were and still are providing a modding experience that people still enjoy to this day after we officially transitioned into independent development instead of modding.
How? So we're talking back in 2011. You found a group of individuals that wanted to work together to build Tiberium secrets for Tiberium Wars, and it's crazy. How do you even? I mean, I think this is, and correct me if I'm wrong. This is before UGC was really a thing. People were creating things and mods and putting them in game, but like, How do you find these people to collaborate with and build this passion project that you've been thinking about?
Yeah, yeah. So we to find these people, most of us, well, some of us remember forums, or we still use forums, but uh, they're not as big as they used to be. So uh, that's where a lot of us were collaborating in the past on the Command and Conquer forums, which no longer exist. Uh, but Reddit is a huge platform now, and it was a decent platform back then as well. So to answer your question, we were finding people on different forums and things like that.
So, you released Tiberian Secrets. So, first of all, I'd love to dig more into the narrative design behind it. You started telling
Of
me
course,
about the story when we were in PAX, and I haven't done a podcast with someone in narrative design. And I think about games, and behind me is Starfield, one of the ones that came to mind. Is like, you make so many branching decisions to go down
right.
this line, and eventually you've got to reconnect at some point down the line, and you might be out here, but out here needs to eventually get back to here. So when you started working on the Tiberian Secrets, um, were you already a narrative designer? Did you learn it? Were you just a writer and you had to learn how to do something else?
Yeah, yeah. I originally just was a writer. I originally just was a writer, and this actually goes back to a previous project that if people were part of the Command and Conquer community way back when, that they might have a reaction to, which was Tiberium Twilight. Yeah, that was the game that a lot of people have were very controversial back in 2010. And there was a community project that was started called Tiberium Eclipse, and that was something that was basically the community effort to try and fix or redo Tiberium Twilight in all its aspects. That was actually something that I started in joined in November of 2010, and I carried my narrative interest to fix the story into Tiberium Secrets. And like it or not, that actually drove a lot of the narrative decisions. And I was originally just a writer. I was just a writer, and then they made me co-lead of Tiberium Eclipse, and then that fell apart a little while later. But the important thing about the narrative aspect, specifically in a mod for Command and Conquer and RTS, is to balance the narrative aspect with the gameplay. That's something that I really think that Command and Conquer did very well. Is here's the narrative concepts, here's what's going on in the story, and how do we match that with gameplay that complements and works hand in hand, right? And that was something that was really great about the designs and things like that. So the story that I was kind of telling you, Greg, when we met over at a PAX a little while in Boston, was where I kind of want where I and what naturally would have potentially happened in my mind is in if Tiberian Twilight story was actually fixed. Um, and I guess the way that I kind of did it was essentially uh, the Global Defense Initiative (GDI) ends up having a civil war uh, over the issues that are over not really trusting Kane or trusting Kane about what he wanted to do with the future of humanity in Tiberia. And then in our story, Kane ends up leaving just as he always said he would. He ends up ascending, right? But the thing is that he only takes a few, like, you know, relatively few people with him. And then it becomes the story of being left behind once your savior is gone, right? And then that I think was actually a much more interesting story to look into. Instead of saying, oh, hey, Kane's the center of everything, Kane's always going to be there. In our story, Kane is no longer there. And everyone's like, well, what do we do now? Right. And Nod gets pushed into the Brotherhood of Nod gets pushed into the into the ruling order, and they are meant to now govern the world where where GDI is kind of just holed up in their blue zones and and just kind of like, well, we kind of failed and thereabouts. There's a lot more details, and people can kind of look up Tiberium Secrets, and we have an entire trailer and narrative, as well as an actual PDF story that we actually had writers kind of put together with different characters and things like that. So that's kind of where the narrative elements kind of happen. But if someone's interested in really becoming a narrative designer or a story writer or just someone that cranks out stories for video games, it's very genre specific. I think that's something key to understand, and just kind of follow your passion as to what you want to write and take it from there.
I think that's so cool. I think, I mean, the fact that you were able to take a story that was already existing, the Command and Conquer world, build upon it, make decisions that maybe they didn't want to make or you did make it, and you had a team there to help you build it out, and you had this lore. I think everything is just so cool. And just being a fanboy of Command and Conquer, right? Like hearing where you wanted to go with it is so cool. I remember the fourth Command and Conquer got so much hate upon release because they tried to make it more
Yeah,
into an esports game rather than the typical Command and Conquer style game, and I don't think it's ever fully recovered from that. But
yeah.
you create Tiberium Secrets, right? And then you, was that before or after the actual formation of Honor Games, or did that come afterwards?
So Honor Games was officially formed in October of 2017, and we we were transitioning out of Tiberium Secrets because we wanted to make our own indie games. So that was when that happened. But it did take us quite a long time to actually fully transition out of modding. Excuse me. So that was part of it.
Can I ask why it would take so long to transition out of modding?
Yeah, that's a good question. The reason why it took so long to transition out of modding, a couple of reasons. The first is we were trying to both wrap up all of our modding work, so that the product could be able to be supported and stand alone by itself, in the mods without our direct involvement. So there were a lot of bugs and a lot of features that we thought were important for quality of life, this and that and stuff like that. So and then also, in the beginning of independent development, it was still a bit challenging to fully navigate that, which I think we can definitely sink some time into as well to discuss that navigation of how we specifically navigated um, that kind of transition from modding to indie development.
So you're talking this all happened around the 2017 timeframe, maybe a little after, right? Because Honor Games was formed, and you had to learn your kind of way from there. At that
Yeah.
point, I think it's safe to say UGC was making a comeback. Not that it was ever really gone, but then all of a sudden, Fortnite was out, Roblox was out, Minecraft was out, and it didn't yet become what Monster has become. Minecraft was, right? But when you started thinking about, hey, we want to create some new indie games, was it always you want to create your own indie game, or you want to build another UGC type of experience for players, or either or?
Yeah, as much as we would like to return to making UGC, um, we realize that the community wanted Tiberium Secrets, but they also wanted, at least for us, they wanted us to see what our next horizon was, right? And that kind of spoke to the core leadership at the time. We originally had four core leadership members that had been with us since Tiberium Secrets. One of them started in 2011 with myself. His name's Fandor, uh, and that's his online handle. And then we also have another individual that was a narrative individual. His name was Japheth, also his online handle. So we with and then we also right now have another person that's still with us, but those other two people that I just mentioned are no longer with Honor Games. They left in December of 2021 for a variety of reasons. But to answer your question about like transitioning and looking at different aspects of UGC, I'm still in relatively good contact with Scott, and I still definitely look at the modding platforms. And when I was sitting down with him a couple of GDCs ago, Scott, anyways, he was telling me that ModDB gets significantly more traffic than IndieDB. ModDB used to have significantly more, and still does, significantly more engagement than IndieDB. And we've been trying to figure out why that is and how to encourage more indie developers to, do their thing and be available to the general community.
Okay. So, what types of projects have you been working on? Can we talk about any?
Yeah, yeah, of course. We can talk about them. The main project that we're working on right now is called Vultures. It's a factory economic simulation with some stock market elements. Basically, what that means is you have a top down view and you have a factory floor with different goods that are coming in, different goods that are going out, and you have machines that are converting these goods to other goods that are more profitable. And this is something that is scaffolding so that we intend to build uh, both upon the actual product, but also something for future. I sat down with our lead dev, Kami Dog, just the other day about our roadmap as to where we're going to go with that, but that is our first major product. It's a rather medium to large scoped game, so we'll see when that ends up being available. However, we are posting our builds on itch.io as well as our Steam page. So there is some limited testing that is able to be done there. So that's our first project. The second project that's currently in development, that's only been in development for about 1 year, is a game called Charge! Exclamation point. So they can, you guys can find both projects on IndieDB. We actually just put out an update last week to re-announce that this project is happening. So basically, what Charge is it's narratively set in the endpoint of independent TIPSEC, which we've been looking into for quite some time. Independent TIPSEC is basically going to be a product called EOH, Equation of Humanity, but I can go over that later. But um, Charge is a first-person shooter 3v3 laser tag game where basically people are running around with different laser weapons, and we have a lot of unique mechanics that coupled with laser tag. So that's basically the two major things that we're working on right now.
For vultures, it's very interesting. You're going into a game that has economics in it, which I love. I've learned I love trying to balance economics in games. Um, and it's not that dissimilar than the economics in Command and Conquer, right? Collecting Tiberium. I mean, I guess Age of Empires, I'm thinking, has more resources. Command and Conquer really only has the one resource. But did any of
Right.
that resource collection, resource management, uh, education or stuff that you learned from previous experience help you here?
Yeah, I feel like one of the main things that is definitely is definitely resource and product management. Managing multiple different things that are going on at the same time, right? And we have a lot of systems that are doing that for the Vultures project. You gotta bring your goods in. You gotta process. You gotta get the right machine to process the specific good, and then you got to figure out an appropriate price point to sell it at. We're working on a couple of different mechanics to make this very holistic. But yeah, definitely. Our lead dev, Kami Dog, he's really interested in the economy and making sure that that's something that's done right.
Yeah, we're doing a podcast with a gentleman who works in economics and was worked on a game, and it's just fascinating how real world economics pretty much mirrors in game economics for some games, and how not predictable, but how you can start to understand how different things work if you understand how economics works. And I think it's kind of cool way to teach people this stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I think we're kind of walking the line in edutainment, education, entertainment, but it's mainly a game. But when I tell certain people about it that have more of an economic background, they get really interested, specifically in the stock market simulation
Hmm.
aspect. So we're looking very carefully. We actually do have an economic consultant on board somewhere. He's floating around. But we do tap this person every once in a while to find out, from an economist's perspective, how should we be doing things, right?
When you are building, so you're building these games in Unity now, and previously, I'm not sure what Tiberium Secrets would have been built.
Yes,
Like, is there a learning
yeah.
curve here from building UGC or mods, for lack
Well,
of a better word?
yeah, there definitely is. Definitely is a specific learning curve. Command and Conquer Tiberium Wars was on the Sage engine, and now Vultures is in Unity, and Charge is in Unreal. So there definitely is a learning curve. Depending on different programming languages that people are familiar with, depending on the entire user interface, learning all these different things. Most of my experience is on the business end, making sure that the organization itself is taken care of. So I don't personally have as much hands-on in the trenches with these engines, but there are a lot of different aspects that should be considered. I think the most important thing, if people are considering looking at transitioning from modding to indie, is uh, just looking at the tools and the tools that exist, and because a lot of these modding UGCs are more selective towards the the specific genre and the specific game, right? Unity and Unreal are more robust in that aspect.
Yeah, and it's interesting how you kind of look at. First of all, it's fascinating. You're tackling multiple engines at once. It's I guess it's not you, so it's brave for sure. But I like how you'll be able to say, "Hey, look at what we're able to create in this game, and in this game, or this engine, right?" And you can kind of see the differences. And I think it's kind of cool to be able to kind of straddle the line like that.
Yeah.
I want to do my fireball round where I'm just going to throw some random questions at you. And
Okay.
we already know your Fourth of July food, but let's go with what did you have for breakfast?
Oh, I had eggs.
What was the last show or movie you binged watched?
Ooh, binged. Uh, that I really binged was Black Mirror. Black Mirror was awesome.
What game are you playing?
As of right now, the Tempest Rising.
Oh, me too. You were the one that told me about it, and I downloaded it. And
Nice.
it feels very Command and Conquer. I like it.
It does. It
It
does.
does. If you were to go to university today, what class would you take that you maybe haven't taken before?
I think I would take more in the realm of sociology,
Okay,
how
understanding all.
society works. Yeah.
Interesting. And I guess let's talk about mental health because that is something that is I don't know if we'd call it a passion, but something that you work very much with and is important to you. And I do think it's related to sociology as well, but that's the only reason I make that connection. But how did your passion for mental health start?
Yeah, so my passion for mental health and where that kind of started was about a decade ago. A lot of these things start like, a decade ago for me. I don't know why. But I was studying psychology at UC Irvine, and I was also part of an organizer of a games guild in the space of this game called World of Tanks. And I ended up meeting someone that really ended up changing a lot of my perspective in my life, and he became my best friend for a significant period of time. And he really supported me through a lot of different challenges when I was going through my schooling. And I ended up finding out that he had some mental health challenges himself, as well as you know minor self harm tendencies. So he would talk to me about it, about suicide and things like that, and I'd be like sitting there, just listening to him. Just we were talking, socializing over the internet, and I would feel so helpless. I wouldn't know what to do, and that's at least my external motivation is to be able to help, and I still carry his memories through to this day. In and we're no longer in contact for a variety of mysterious reasons, but I still carry that through to this day. As to every time I pick up the phone when I'm working at 988, the National Suicide and Mental Health Prevention Hotline for the United States, um, I still carry that. And that's kind of the external part of where it kind of started for me. But the internal part of where it started for me was back during that time as well, in summer of 2013. I was actually personally diagnosed with bipolar 1. And I've been pretty open about that. I've actually somehow became a mental health advocate. I don't know how that happened, but it just kind of happened over time. But but yeah, so that also happened. I went through my own journey. A lot of it is documented in the book that I have written, as well as I'm definitely open and talking about it, with people. And the interesting thing about mental health is that once you start talking about it, then everyone's like, okay, yeah, yeah, let's talk about it. But it's kind of breaking down that original, stigma door, and then opening it up and then seeing where it goes, right?
I think that's one of the beauties of community and gaming, and you seem to have found it before others. It
Yeah.
is you find like minds, right? And some people might be troubled, and some people might be thriving, and some people might be in different parts of life. But you found a best friend on the other side of the headset that you probably never even knew what they looked like, and maybe you eventually met, but you bond and you play these games, and it's so funny on the type of connection you can have with someone by playing a game. I play games with my high school friends every night, and it's a stronger connection we had than when we used to hang out in high school because we're there for each other. And I love the motivation. I mean, you care for this person, and some there what troubled them troubled you, or at least got you interested in saying, how can I help this person, right? Like, and yeah, it's tough from across the world or across the computer, but like there's things you can do. So, and this is a tough question for me to ask without even prepping you, but like, are there some key takeaways that, whether you're dealing with mental health or dealing with someone with mental health, like what are the one, two, three things you should be doing or checking in with? Like, yeah,
Ooh, okay.
yeah, I know it's
Yeah, all right. Just gonna give me a fast one. All right, give me a hard ball. All right, let's
yeah.
see. Hot potato. Let's see what I got. Okay, so I think if we were to break it down into the top three things, let's just stick with three, or the most important things in communicating with someone with mental health, or about mental health, is just making sure that you're active. The first is making sure you're actively listening, right? As we're doing a podcast, we're listeners here, but at the same time, just being there, right? Being supportive, being non-judgmental. It's sometimes very hard to be non-judgmental for some certain people, you know. Um, but so that's the first thing: active listening with not with no with little to no judgment. All right. The second thing: don't be afraid to ask for help. That's something that I really look at. And I say this to our callers all the time. It takes strength to reach out for help. It's not a weakness, right? And I explain it like this. I say it takes strength to reach out for help because in reaching out for help, you show that you know your limitations and what you know and what you don't know. So that would be another key thing about mental health, and talking to people about it, and just being able to open up. And I think the third thing, um, is really looking to educating both yourself and other individuals, and just doing not just online research, but looking up these different organizations that are local, Like one of them that's really good is, as most people in the mental health space know, there's an organization called NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. This is just one of the many organizations out there that are there. And obviously, of course, 988 is always out there for the suicide prevention stuff. But at the same time, I think the most important thing, if people are kind of queasy or uncertain or whether they want to open up to their friends and their family, or for some reason, it's interesting. You bring up a very good point about games and community, and I've been thinking about this for quite some time. It's very magical. You have a connection over the computer, over the internet, and you care about that person, and they care about you, and it's a very fascinating thing. And I just find that there are so many different potentials. And I think I've been trying to figure out why this is for a very long time. And I think the reason why that is, well, there are a lot of reasons, but I think one of the culminating reason why games is such a pure form of connection is because people come there to play. And that's their primary, if not their only motivation when they boot up a game, is to play and socialize and connect. We're not there with some people are, but most people are not there with different agendas. Like, oh, hey, I want to get you to buy something from me. Oh, hey, I want, this and that. But I think that's one of the key reasons why video games and just playing other games as well, tabletop, is such an important medium, and why it allows for such deep and rich connection, far beyond traditional in-person interaction.
There's a lot there, Eric, and that was fantastic. Let's just kind of knock these three out, right? Active listening should be a quality everyone works on no matter what you do. It's amazing how much active listening can change a full conversation. And I'd say probably 90% of the people don't do active listening. And doing the podcast has significantly helped me pay attention because I look over here and I get distracted and crap happens. But active listening is super important. And I think it shows utmost respect when someone you can repeat back to someone what they said to you because it shows that you absorbed all that. Second is don't be afraid to ask for help. Sorry, I wrote it all down. So I'm looking here.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
I think it's so funny. So with one of my children, he's ADHD and um,
yeah.
it was tough and it's nothing that's gonna ruin his life and we know that, but at the same time like we can see where he struggles and we started getting him help and now we see other parents come to us and say how did you recognize that, what were the signs, what like everyone's going through this stuff, man. Everybody has someone or knows someone that's going through this stuff, and it's just not normalized to your point because people are afraid to ask for help. But the truth is, it's more normal to be diagnosed with something these days than not. It's just part of human nature now. We just need to ask for help. And something I've learned to love is TikTok, specifically because I found different people talking about how do I deal with my child that's going through this or how do I do it. And I get it, it's TikTok and you got to take each one of these with a grain of salt, but it's great to hear other people's perspective on how they approach the same type of challenges that we can. We're in this age of learning that's so amazing because there's so much information at our fingertips. You just need to be motivated to go out there and actually look it up and do your own research, right? Which goes to your third point of education. There's so much data out there and some of it's crap data. We get that, right? But there's so much data out there that part of this comes back to you. It's on you to educate yourself, to you to learn, to you to take the time. And the fact that you found that person, you did that, and you figured this stuff out, I think is so cool. I think the reason that games are kind of a safe space are that for online games, at least, people are anonymous at first, and people are
Mm,
completely different when they're anonymous, right? You'll have trolls, you'll have bullies, you'll have really nice people, you'll have everything. And you can let your guard down and then you can find like-minded people that are like you and you start to become more comfortable. And I think your point was right that people are there to play, they kind of let their guard down, but I think it's just more so just being surrounded by those like-minded people, and I think that mask helps, right? Like I may not want to let you know who I am until we become better acquainted and then we start talking and I get more comfortable opening up to you. I think everything you stated there, Eric, was so powerful, and I give you so much credit to take the time after you went through an experience with a friend at the time, said, "Hey, I want to learn how to deal with this," and I think that's such a huge step, and nothing but the utmost respect. I thank you so much for sharing that story.
Of course, Greg.
Do you take a look at this mental health stuff and connect it to honor games? Are they two separate passion projects?
I do. I have connected them together. I actually on our website I have a store page, and I actually put together a mental health role playing card game, uh, which I'm selling on my website. But yes, I have put them together. Um, and people go, "Oh, I like this. I like to say, well, two things. One on your last point, but I'm just jumping. Don't don't put all your eggs in one basket unless you made the basket, right? So I think that a lot of a lot of what I'm doing here is making the basket. This is my life. This is our life. Everyone. You're building your podcast. You're building all these things. They're just as we are, and it's important because when you put things together, you're like, oh, you put all your passion together, and what if it fails? What if it doesn't work out? Oh no. But well, yeah, maybe it won't go where you expect it to go, but you will, if it's passion driven first, you will find the meaning and the fulfillment, and eventually the success will come. And what that specific success looks like, that's up for you to decide. That's not for someone, even like, family or parents or siblings or whoever. That's not for them to say, okay, hey, this is how I define success. You're not successful, right? Which is something that's been frustrating in my personal life with my family. But that's just kind of how it goes. Not everyone understands, the way that the world is shifting.
It's loaded again, Eric. You're just full of insight here. I love it, and I think you have such a positive approach to this, which I respect, because mental health is not something easy to talk about. But the truth is, it shouldn't be difficult, and I think that's the thing, is we just need to make it not difficult to talk about. But maybe some people are just afraid to bring it up, and I think maybe that's a stigma that people don't want to talk about it if they're going through it. But I think that's something I always loved about Xbox is they build all those accessibility controllers, and they let people who have disabilities play games because that's what they want to do. And when you're disabled or you're going through something and you can't play a game, that's the community you want to be able to connect with, right? And I love all the initiatives they have to get everybody gaming, because to block anyone from getting into a video game is the most asinine thing to do, because the more people that play games, the better for everyone. It's not like it's going to ruin anyone's life. So why not open up games to everyone that can play games, and not, it goes against, it's for females in gaming, LGBTQ plus people in gaming, people who are disabled, right? Like everyone should be able to play a game. There should be no blockers to this. It's crazy that people think there should be.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if people think that there should be blockers. I don't know anyone or have heard anyone that would actually make that case. I think they just realize that it's just too expensive to make it accessible to these to the different things. I've actually been looking recently. Actually, I'm booting up another project. Oh, geez, I'm booting up another project to look into accessibility in games and stuff like that, from a vision perspective. But I think the aspect of why people are at least a little bit hesitant about mental health specifically is that it means that you have to put yourself out there. It means that you're literally putting your thought processes and your cognition and what's going on in your life out there to the world. And I've noticed on Reddit, and other platforms, but mainly Reddit, a lot of people seem to be okay with doing that on an anonymous internet type of situation, right? And that's, I think, the magic of what you were going saying back about video games is, it is generally anonymous. You don't know their real name. You don't know where they live or what's going on. And there's a concept in governance, in sociology and philosophy, called the veil of ignorance. And basically, I'm not sure if anyone has heard of this term before, but basically, what that is it's saying you know nothing about the other person and the people, but you need to make policies and governance laws and do stuff as if you knew nothing about them. So that means that that you try to be as fair as possible, right? And I find that really interesting, and I really look into applying that to how video games, and over the internet and stuff, because we literally know very little or nothing about the other person, and yet we're supposed to play and interact, and yet we are still able to do that, and I and not just do that, but do it very well, and find people across the internet, across the world, across the computer, to be able to socialize, connect, community, all of these things.
The power of video games, it really is. It allows a shy person to not be shy. It allows them to take that first step. The problem is, to your point, going out into the real world and exercise that. And that's maybe something beauty of like games like Pokemon Go, where like they
Right.
get you moving. I love the idea of games making you go outside, making you interact, and we're seeing more community-based games. But how do you get that to happen in IRL for real, for lack of better
Yeah,
words?
indeed, indeed. That's the magic of video games, the magic of the internet.
Cool. So I want to hit it off with one last question about honor games before we go there. As a longtime CNC advocate, and you are as well, you're building an awesome laser tag game that we talked about at PAX East, you talked about here. Have you put a bigger thought on where you want to be in, say, 3 to 5 years?
In 3 to 5 years for Honor Games, I would like to have one more big project kind of done. And I think what depending on what that big project is, there's a couple of candidates right now, but also I I really want to, let's just say 5 years. In 3 to 5 years, I really want to start this initiative that I've been working towards on the side. And basically, what I call it a trigger initiative. It's something where we take a not a canceled, but a discontinued indie project, and we get it through to a minimum viable product that's not originally ours. I call it a trigger initiative. I call it, and we're actually doing that right now with one of my friends, Zmore Designs. He runs this independent indie game consulting thing, the game is called Emberfall, and it's about a firefighter simulation thing, not simulation, a firefighter narrative game. But I think regardless of what that project is about, I want to be able to be similar to a publisher, but not exactly a publisher. Just basically able to provide the management and organizational support to indie devs and saying, hey, we're able to do this. Um, we're able to, walk you through the process, but you still got to do the work. I would really like to have that initiative really solid and formalized in the next 3 to 5 years.
It's kind of like a mentorship type of thing to help
Yeah,
kind of come and coach and help get your project past that finish line.
indeed. Indeed.
I'm just curious, what is the makeup of the people that are working on it, and are you looking for any sort of help at the moment that if anyone's listening, they can reach out?
Yeah, yeah. We're always accepting applications for different things. Right now, I think we are primarily looking for 3D artists. Yeah, we are looking for 3D artists, 3D animators, stuff like that. Um, you know, uh, we are all technically RevShare volunteers, so I'm going to make that up front about people. Sometimes people get confused about that, even though we make that very clear. So I think those are the people that we'll be still looking for at this time, but also, solid programmers in Unity, C, is it C sharp? That those are people that we are looking for the Vultures project. Um, you know, and yeah, that's kind of what's on the horizon. We did actually submit to a publisher a little while ago, but they never really. But the economy of publishing and also the general landscape of games industries right now is historically challenging. So we'll have to see how that shapes up in the coming years and months.
Well, Eric Chow, founder of Honor Games, it's been an honor to have you, and I appreciate you taking the time today to come and tell us about your story, your studio, the idea of your passion of mental health and all that. Thank you so much for joining. Before we do go today, let us know anything you want, and more importantly, let us know where we can find Honor Games.
Yeah, so our primary mode of communication is on LinkedIn. You guys can connect with me, follow me on LinkedIn, Eric J. Chow, as well as honorgames.co. There's no M. That's our website, honorgames.co. And all of our information is kind of there as well.
We will have links to all of Eric's projects, everything he's spoken about, his book, his studio, his games, on our player driven blog. Eric, again, thank you so much for being a part of this. I hope you enjoy your 4th of July weekend, although when this comes out, that would be a month away, but enjoy it, and we'll talk again soon.
Great. Thank you, Greg.